everybody. My name is Hilary Stewart-Jones, and I'm here with my colleague, David Whyte, who's joining me today. David is a colleague of mine from Harris Hagan. Welcome, David.
Thanks.
David, I'd like to ask you about what's going on in the UK. There's a lot of interest and focus in terms of what the regulator's doing. We understand that new regulation is in the pipeline. Would you like to update us and also whether there's been any impact as a result of governmental upheaval?
Well, I think it's pretty common knowledge now that the white paper is still outstanding in terms of the gambling review. Recent rumours seem to suggest that it's somewhat slightly delayed again. So the most recent update was really coming out in the next couple of weeks. However, that appears to perhaps be a little bit optimistic again. So my personal view is it's unlikely to be published this side of Christmas, but perhaps sometime in the new year.
Thank you. And in terms of what we can expect from any white paper, have you got any insight as to what probably will be the most major changes to the statutory framework, which is, of course, the 2005 Act?
But I think it's probably helpful to talk about the key issue on everyone's minds, which is that of affordability. Now, there have been lots of different leaks or apparent leaks about whether or not the white paper is going to address affordability. Again, my personal view is that even if the government does give an indication as to what it would like to see in that area, I don't think it's very likely that the government would dictate formally what operators will be obliged to do. I think it's perhaps more likely that it will give an indication of what it would like to see and then pass perhaps the responsibility to introduce that to the Gambling Commission in licence conditions and codes of practice. Firstly, to set out in statute an obligation would allow government less flexibility. And secondly, I think that it will want the Gambling Commission to have an involvement in any decisions that are made when those changes are introduced.
So extrapolating from that, do you think we will end up in the UK with the same position as now has been imposed in Germany, where there is a statutory limit to the amount of money that can be deposited in a calendar month?
I certainly think that that's something that the Gambling Commission would like to see. Whether or not it's a fixed limit in terms of what people can lose, or whether it's perhaps more something where there are certain requirements that need to be met before further inquiries are conducted. But I do think that that's the direction of travel. Now, I can expect your next question will be, do I agree with it? We could debate all day long whether or not the Commission's getting things right in terms of its expectations from affordability. My personal view is I think perhaps that would be a step too far. But what I'm more concerned about at present is not what the Commission is doing, but it's how it's doing it. We're seeing a lot of situations at the moment where the Gambling Commission is setting out in guidance or in other published reports its expectations from an affordability perspective, and that isn't right. So were government to start to make things a little bit more clear in the white paper, and were the Gambling Commission to have an idea of what the government's expectations were, I would like to see the Gambling Commission going back to foundational principles and introducing its requirements in licence conditions and codes of practice that have been appropriately consulted about and that operators and stakeholders have had the ability to input on, rather than setting out broad and arguably somewhat unclear expectations in guidance, because operators aren't really finding it very easy at the moment to understand exactly what the requirements are. I suppose an addition to that is that, or an example of that perhaps, is the recent consultation that the Commission has announced is impending following its delayed implementation of Social Responsibility Code 3.4.3 and the supporting guidance. Some 10 days before it was due to come into effect, the Commission delayed it in part. It said that it would consult at the end of September with a view to introducing those requirements in February. We are now mid-November and we're yet to see that consultation. Operators are therefore left completely clueless as to what they're supposed to do at the moment. We've got an imbalance between the expectations of land-based operators and remote operators as a result. And perhaps most importantly, I think, is that the Commission hasn't met its own set deadlines. That's frustrating for the industry. They're held to account, rightly so, by the Commission when they fail to meet the Commission's expectations. And I think it's only fair that the Commission delivers on its promises. It meets its deadlines. It engages with the industry. We're not really seeing that at the moment, and I think that's where we need to see some change.
Thanks very much for that full overview. And finally, what would you be advising companies who still have UK-facing customers in terms of taking a cautious approach to future-proofing their business, both in terms of their own affordability checks that they're imposing, even if the Gambling Commission guidelines are a little bit fuzzy, but more important than that, what do you advise people they should do, knowing at some stage when they get reviewed by the Commission, it's more likely than not that they will actually get a fine?
I think that we all know, whatever the outcomes of this consultation, I don't think anybody involved in the industry now is unaware of what the Commission expectations are. So future-proofing, given the direction of travel, given the impending consultation, given the likely outcome of the white paper, operators need to carry on the same route as they have been, to the extent that the previous guidance, or that guidance that exists for the land-based industry, needs to be at the forefront of their minds. They need to be closely monitoring their customers. They need to be able to demonstrate that they have engaged with customers at appropriate times in the customer's journey. They take an incremental and risk-based approach to both safer gambling and AML. And they record all of that information clearly in internal board documentation, in policies, procedures, in processes, so that when the Commission does come to conduct an assessment, even if they've perhaps slightly missed the mark, and I put aside those serious outliers from that oversight, because in those circumstances, I think perhaps regulatory action will be more warranted. For those who are trying to do the right thing and perhaps just slightly miss the mark, at least they will then have clear records and evidence of the attempts that they've made to produce to the Commission if they need to challenge any decisions that it takes.
Thank you. And one final question. Do you now get the feeling that the compliance as a function is being taken more seriously at a board level? Because certainly in my experience, chief compliance is still not, an executive function at a board level. Do you see that trend starting certainly with UK-facing operators? Or maybe not as much as you like?
Yeah, to a larger extent, I think there is a change. I think businesses are becoming more and more aware, perhaps through recent Commission fines, regulatory settlements, public statements, etc., of the dangers that they face. And they're also starting to see an increase in the action that the Commission takes against personal management licence holders following any operating licence reviews or sanctions that have been imposed. So that's always going to have an impact on how boards view compliance as a function, and perhaps will encourage them to become more engaged with that side of the business. Is it perfect? No, very much not. But I think that's something that is only going to continue to go in the right direction. Perhaps more concerning is the fact that the Commission is targeting the only area of a business that is fighting its corner. The compliance side of the business all seek to deliver, in the majority of cases, what the Commission would like to see. A lot of the failings or mistakes that we see are down to a misunderstanding of what the Commission expects, in my view, rather than deliberate ignorance or a lack of tolerance for the Commission's requirements. But yet then, for the Commission to then move on and seek to hold personal licence holders to account leaves them feeling a bit exposed, and is perhaps also leading to people with lots of experience leaving the industry, and that's a shame.
Thanks very much for your time, David. Thank you.